जानते हैं
12 minutes past 7, you are listening to Sabahul Muslim on Radio Islam International. Right, so today is the big shutdown. From my understanding, and I said this yesterday as well, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a different perspective, a different understanding, it seems like in our communities at least, people are only concerned about the impact on traffic and whether there will be accessibility to certain areas or not. That's the big question. I don't see or I don't hear, and obviously I can't hear everywhere or most places, nor can I see most places. That's why I'm sharing my thought with you and hoping that you'd give me feedback. Tell me whether I am on the right track, as they would say, when it comes to this particular point or not. And that is that does strike action really interest people? I'm talking of middle class people, right? Because the majority of our listeners are made up of middle class people. Middle class people, if they go on strike, it's more for particular causes. You know, you'll go and strike maybe because of, or rather, protest, not really strike. Strike is, I think, more to do with staying away from work. So middle class people will go and protest for human rights issues. Example, Palestine or Kashmir, or if there was something of that nature locally as well. Xenophobia is one example that comes to our mind. Protesting against crime, yes. But this year is about the cost of living. Now, even middle class people will identify with this and say, well, you know what, maybe we should also join the march. But it was not initiated by them, I suppose, perhaps because they did not feel it as acutely as the lower working class. You know, you've got all these classes now that you have to speak about. Even middle class is not one homogeneous group. You've got to talk about lower middle class and upper middle class and middle class, if there is such a thing. But anyway, let's have the discussion. I mean, are you interested in this shutdown? Do you think it'll make a difference? Do you think that even if it doesn't make a difference in the sense where government is going to, mend its ways and you're going to see an immediate economic upturn? Of course, that's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. But do you think it's necessary? Sometimes, even if you can't secure a change, you still got to display the extent of your frustration, and you've got to display the extent of your grievance, and maybe that's what these trade unions are doing. They've got their backs against the wall here because of the train system being shut down. They can't get the kind of numbers that they used to get prior to COVID. You already heard there on the news with Anisa that NUMSA has said that they can't. They just don't have the financial power. They've got all these internal issues that they're dealing with and these court challenges and whatever else. And they're a big union, a massive union. So they can't bring their workers to the streets. Workers will lose their pay for the day. That's the nature of strike action. But at the same time, if you don't have the numbers, will you be able to put the pressure? Or is it a case of let's do the best that we can under the circumstances? I'm putting it up for discussion. I'm looking at a message here on the WhatsApp screen that reads, since Ramaphosa's administration took power, the country is becoming worse in terms of ANC leadership. Where is the NEC? We see a lot of crime happening in our communities, scapegoats of African people, corruption, strikes, shutdowns. Ramaphosa is sleeping. Interestingly, many make a similar comment that the president is sleeping, the president is absent, the president is nowhere to be seen. Well, do you have similar sentiments, or is that just a case of, whoever's the incumbent, he's going to bear the wrath of the people, and maybe people had heightened expectations of him because of what happened during the Zuma period. He started off a low base, maybe, and that made it easy for him in the initial years. Now, what's it? Almost 5 years. He came in 2018 around February. So 4.5 years into his presidency, which is split, right? He kind of completed Zuma's term, and now he's halfway through his first term, which will conclude in 2024. Then he's still eligible for a second term. He could effectively be the president for just over 11 years if the ANC wins the elections and if he's still the leader of the ANC. Is he too distracted by what's happening in the party? That's also another thing that we've got to look at. So, yeah, we put it out for discussion. Let's hear what your thoughts are. Coming up in a bit, we've got the media lens. Ibrahim Dean, we focus on Ethiopia. After the break at 7:30 for the news headlines, Moana Waja takes us through the first word of three as part of the competition. We speak to Hartmut Winkler, who's an expert about the Coburg nuclear plant and what the concerns are there. In the next hour, our focus is on Sri Lanka. We continue the discussion on Khadija radiallahu anha. And towards the latter part of the program, we will speak to Kosato's Matthew Parks and try and unpack what exactly it is they're trying to achieve with lesser numbers. Okay, so that's what we are going to be discussing between now and 9 o'clock. We'll also be discussing your thoughts, your feedback to whatever we have been putting out for discussion. Time for this morning's hadith. It's now the last hadith in the chapter on compassion and support and assistance for fellow Muslims from Riyadus Salihin.
Hadith discussions on Sabahul Muslim with Mulana Sulaimaan Ravat.
عن أبي عمارة البراء بن عازب رضي الله عنهما قال أمرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ب7 ونهانا عن 7. أمرنا بعيادة المريض واتباع الجنازة وتشميت العاطس وإبرار المقسم والنصر المظلوم وإجابة الداعي وإفشاء السلام، ونهانا عن خواتيم أو تختم بالذهب وعن شرب بالفضة وعن المياثر الحمر وعن القسي وعن لبس الحرير والاستبرق والديباج. متفق عليه. Abu Umara, Bara bin Azib radiallahu anhu narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam commanded us to do 7 things and he prohibited us from 7 things. He ordered us to visit the sick, to attend a funeral, to say Yarhamukallah to the one who sneezes, to assist, to fulfill the oath of a person who took an oath, to help the oppressed, to accept the invitation of one who invites, and make the greeting, meaning the salam, common. Those are the 7 things which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed us to do. He prohibited us from 7 things as well: wearing gold rings, drinking from silver utensils, sitting on red silken saddles, wearing al-qasi, which is a garment of flax mixed with silk, then wearing silk itself, brocade and silk brocade. So similar to the hadith of yesterday, where the hadith is the hadith mentions that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed 6 things. The same 6 are found here. The 7th here is to assist to fulfill the oath of a person who took an oath. Meaning, if that person has taken a responsibility upon himself, now he's struggling, help him. Don't say, "Oh well, who told you to be clever?" Now sort it out for yourself. And greeting people, whether you know them or not. The prohibitions are the well-known ones. Men are forbidden from wearing gold jewelry and silk. Muslims are not permitted to use utensils of gold or silver. An oppressed person should be assisted by securing his right from the oppressor that we spoke about. And the oath, help the person so he doesn't have to break his oath and pay the penalty. One thing I must mention when it comes to visiting the sick, at the right time, for the right duration. Sometimes they may want you to sit longer because they're feeling bored in the sick bed. Other times it may not be appropriate and they want you to do a quick exit. And you must also then visit them at the right time. 22 minutes past 7.